Now, just a couple of days ago, it was announced the WNBA Players Union had voted to authorize a strike.
This isn't a labor dispute. This isn't a fight for fairness. This is a high-stakes game of chicken being played on the edge of a cliff by a league that has never once learned how to fly on its own. And the terrifying part is that the people holding the steering wheel seem perfectly willing to drive straight off the edge just to prove they're equal. Now let's stop pretending and talk plainly, because the moment the WNBA Players Association authorized a strike, the conversation stopped being emotional and became mathematical, and math does not care about slogans, narratives, or historical grievances. Math cares about one thing: whether the business survives. For 27 straight years, this league has not survived on revenue. It has survived on mercy. It has survived on subsidies. It has survived because the NBA, its owners, and its infrastructure decided, for reasons that were cultural, political, and aspirational, to keep writing checks to cover losses that would have shut down almost any other professional sports league on earth. That is not oppression. That is patronage. And the uncomfortable truth fans are now waking up to is this: you cannot demand a 50-50 revenue split in a league where there is no profit to split. No matter how morally satisfying that demand feels, is what makes this moment uniquely insane. For the first time, literally the first time, the league had real momentum. Not symbolic momentum. Not Twitter trending momentum. Real momentum. Arenas filling. Ratings spiking. Jerseys flying off shelves. Corporate sponsors sniffing around with actual money instead of support statements. And all of it, whether people like admitting it or not, was driven overwhelmingly by one player, Caitlin Clark. Her rookie season didn't just boost interest.
Strike against the NBA owners. I just say NBA owners because every team is owned by an NBA owner except for two. All right, and they're trying.
It altered the trajectory of the entire league. The Indiana Fever went from playing in front of empty sections to selling out buildings that hadn't seen that kind of demand in years. Television partners saw ratings triple when she was on the floor. Casual fans, the lifeblood of any sports business, finally showed up. And right at the exact moment when patience was beginning to pay off, the Players Association chose to light a match in a room full of gasoline. To be brutally clear about the offer on the table, because this is where fan disbelief turns into outright anger. Maximum salaries were set to jump from roughly $250,000 to nearly $2 million. Minimum salaries were going to more than double. Team salary caps were set to explode from around $1.4 million to over $3 million. Charter flights were already approved. Benefits expanded. Visibility growing. In any rational universe, that is called winning. In any other profession on earth, that kind of jump is life-altering. And yet the response wasn't celebration, it was a strike authorization, because the union demanded revenue sharing identical to a league that generates tens of billions of dollars annually while this one loses money every single season. This is where David Samson enters the conversation like a cold splash of water to the face. Samson isn't a hot take artist. He's a former team president. He's been in the rooms where leagues live or die. And when he says the NBA will draw a hard line on revenue sharing, even to the point of shutting the league down, that isn't bluster. That's experience talking. Owners do not negotiate against math. They negotiate against leverage. And the WNBA players, for all their passion, currently have almost none. Fans understand this instinctively, even if the union leadership refuses to. You cannot revenue share losses. The NBA's 50-50 model works because there is something substantial to split. The WNBA, by most credible estimates, generates roughly $200 million in revenue while losing anywhere from $10 million to $40 million annually. Those losses have been absorbed quietly, consistently, and without fanfare by NBA ownership groups since 1997. That means every demand for equality that ignores profitability isn't progressive, it's delusional. Equality of outcome without equality of input is not how businesses survive. And here's the part that's causing the most damage: the fans turning. Not trolls. Not misogynists. Not bad faith actors. Actual supporters. People who waited years for this league to find its footing. People who defended low salaries, empty arenas, and lack of coverage because they believed growth was coming. Those same fans are now openly saying, "Take the raise." They're calling the leadership embarrassing. They're asking why players with ownership interests in other leagues are steering this one toward the brink. They're not saying this because they hate women's sports. They're saying it because they finally see what happens when ideology collides with economics. This strike threat didn't project strength. It exposed fragility. It told casual fans, the very ones brought in by Clark's breakout, that the league might disappear again, just as it did when women's professional basketball collapsed in the late 1990s. And that's the nightmare scenario nobody in the union seems willing to say out loud. If this league folds, there is no guarantee it comes back. History is ruthless about that. Momentum, once lost, rarely returns on command. The irony is painful. The players finally had leverage, not in negotiations, but in public goodwill. They had sympathy. They had attention. They had growth. And instead of consolidating that progress, they overreached. They turned a success story into a standoff. They transformed a breakthrough moment into a referendum on entitlement. And now the question hanging over everything isn't, will they get paid more? Because that was already happening. The question is whether they've misread the moment so badly that they've poisoned the very well they were finally learning how to drink from. This isn't about denying past injustice. It's about recognizing present reality. The league doesn't need a revolution right now, it needs stability. It needs to prove that 2024 wasn't a fluke. It needs to show sponsors, networks, and owners that growth can be sustained without threatening the entire operation every time negotiations come up. Because once fans disengage, once sponsors hesitate, once owners decide the optics aren't worth the losses anymore, there is no strike powerful enough to save what collapses next, and that's why this moment feels so reckless. The raise was real. The progress was real. The opportunity was real. The threat to walk away from it all? That's real too. And whether the players realize it or not, they are playing the most dangerous game in the league's history, not against owners, but against time, patience, and a fan base that may not be willing to come back if this gamble goes wrong. If the players think a strike is their nuclear weapon, they're about to learn a brutal truth of professional sports economics. The owners already have the bomb, and it's been sitting on the table this entire time. Here's the part nobody in the WNBA Players Association wants to say out loud, because once you say it, the leverage fantasy collapses instantly. The league can keep going without most of the veterans, but it cannot survive without public goodwill. And right now, that goodwill is evaporating by the hour. Fans aren't threatening boycotts out of spite. They're emotionally checking out because the strike threat exposed something deeply unsettling. The union leadership appears to fundamentally misunderstand how replaceable labor becomes when a league is still fighting for relevance rather than defending dominance. Let's talk about the option nobody wants to touch because it sounds too ugly, too controversial, too anti-player to even acknowledge: replacement players. This isn't a scare tactic. This is a structural reality baked into the current contracts. Rookies on standard WNBA deals cannot strike. They are bound. That means if a work stoppage actually happens, the most marketable, most watched, most talked about players in the entire league are still legally obligated to play. That list starts, and let's not dance around it, with Caitlin Clark. It includes Angel Reese. It includes Cameron Brink once she returns healthy. The faces that fans tune in for? They're not the ones calling the shots right now. And if you think that wouldn't matter, ask yourself a brutally honest question. When casual fans turn on a WNBA game in 2024 or 2025, are they tuning in because of union leadership ideology? Or because they want to watch Clark pull from the logo, Reese dominate the glass, or Brink anchor a defense? Sports consumption has never been democratic. It has always been star-driven. And the union's strategy seems to pretend otherwise, as if emotional solidar will override consumer behavior. It won't. It never has. It never will. Now layer in the international reality that fans are already pointing out. Women's professional leagues in Europe are stacked with elite talent making between $30,000 and $60,000 per season. That's not an insult, that's the market. Offer those players six figures, American exposure, world-class facilities, and a chance to showcase their game on a global stage, and they will not hesitate for a single second because of a strike they're not legally part of. They'll be on planes within days. This isn't hypothetical. This is how labor disruptions have played out across sports history, from baseball to hockey to football. The idea that a strike automatically freezes operations is a myth, especially in a league where ownership already subsidizes losses and therefore has far less incentive to cave quickly. This is where the comparison to the NBA becomes actively dangerous for the players. NBA players can shut down the league because the league bleeds billions without them. Television contracts implode. Advertisers panic. Owners lose real money fast. The WNBA operates in the opposite direction. A strike does not stop massive profit, it reduces losses. That flips the entire power dynamic. Owners don't feel urgency. They feel patience. They've already been writing checks for 27 years. Waiting out a labor dispute is not a nightmare scenario for them, it's a rounding error, and fans sense this imbalance, which is why the tone online has shifted from sympathy to ridicule. When supporters start using words like absurd, clowns, and self-sabotage, that's not misogyny, that's frustration. These are people who defended the league during empty arena seasons, who celebrated every incremental win, who finally felt validated in 2024 when attendance spiked and ratings jumped. Now they're watching leadership risk all of that over a demand that simply does not align with the business reality. It feels less like advocacy and more like ego. The perception problem gets worse when you factor in optics the league has already struggled with. Viral moments, fair or unfair, matter. When casual viewers remember a WNBA All-Star team struggling against a content creator, that image sticks. It shouldn't define the league, but it does shape perception. And perception is currency when you're still trying to convince sponsors, networks, and fans that your product deserves long-term investment. Demanding NBA-level revenue sharing while fighting those perception battles simultaneously is not bold strategy, it's catastrophic timing. Then there's the internal fracture nobody wants to address. Veteran players driving this strike authorization have lived through the worst years. Their resentment is understandable. But their incentives are not aligned with the rookies who are just now experiencing success. A player nearing the end of her career views this negotiation as a final stand. A rookie views it as a runway. That gap matters. Because if the league collapses or stalls again, the veterans lose what they already earned, but the rookies lose what they were just beginning to build. And the union leadership is supposed to protect all players, not just the loudest or most ideologically driven ones. This is why fans keep circling back to one uncomfortable question: who actually benefits if this league implodes? That question wouldn't even be asked if the strategy made sense. But when leadership includes players with stakes in other leagues or overseas opportunities, skepticism grows. Optics matter. Trust matters. And right now, trust is bleeding out faster than any salary negotiation could fix. What's especially maddening to fans is how unnecessary this risk feels. The owners already blinked. Charter flights approved. Salary caps exploding. Maximum deals nearing $2 million. These weren't concessions run out by strikes. They were offered because the league finally showed signs of life. This was the moment to lock in gains, stabilize growth, and come back stronger in the next CBA when revenue, actual profit, might finally exist to share. Instead, the union chose escalation over consolidation, and here's the coldest truth of all. If a strike happens and replacement players take the floor alongside rookies, and if fans still tune in, even at reduced levels, The union's leverage collapses permanently. Owners will learn they can operate without appeasing every demand. Sponsors will recalibrate expectations. And players will have proven the very argument being used against them, that the league is bigger than any individual veteran, but still fragile enough to be rebooted without them, why this feels less like a negotiation and more like a miscalculation spiraling in real time. The players aren't wrong to want more. They're wrong about when and how to demand it. In business, timing is leverage. Miss it, and no amount of moral certainty can save you. The league didn't need a confrontation right now, it needed proof of sustainability. And instead of showing strength through growth, the strike threat has exposed weakness through impatience. This is the danger zone. Not because owners are evil.